Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. I'm thrilled that you are here. Wow. Okay. So today's guest, she's super fun. She is a person that I was just introduced to through a booking agency that has been sending me amazing podcast guests. And it's really fascinating because when I was communicating with her, I had to get some new information that I wasn't able to find. And I sent her an email, and then I got this auto response about how she doesn't respond to emails on the weekends. And I thought, well, look at you. You're the one that pitched me, and now you're not even going to be available. Like, what are you even doing? And it was so fascinating. I got a little touchy and had a bit of resistance in there. And so I was really eager to come clean and share that with her. And it was really fun because our conversation actually took a turn toward that and how important setting intentions and casting a vote for the woman that I'm becoming, and how that plays out into practices that I get to implement. And if somebody gets a little prickly when they interact with that, that it is more about them than it is about me. And, we talk about that all the time. And it's still, I'm a weirdo. So I think it's fun when I'm reminded or come up against one of my growth edges, because I want to work through these things. I want to know when something rubs me the wrong way so that I can take a look inside and see what in me needs to change. And if there's nothing, to just know that I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have and move on through. Because for me, and I don't know, maybe you as well, I can relive an old story and my body doesn't know that that is not happening right now. So if you've ever retold a story about something that happened to you that was not pleasant, or some way that someone treated you that was not fair, and oh my gosh, and can you believe she said this and then he did that, and no. And we just get so worked up, and it's because our body doesn't know that it's not happening right now. And I've been really mindful as I'm making new friends and meeting new people, hearing their stories and hearing how very often we fall into the habit of talking about ourselves as a string of past events that were either pleasant or not, and how we got to who we are. And I just think it would be fascinating if we started introducing ourselves as the person we're becoming instead of the person that we were. I'm going to be thinking about that some more. I'll let you know how that goes. But I'm really eager to share this conversation with you today with my guest, Rita Suzanne. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts about her bold actions and how she's reclaiming her schedule. Rita Suzanne is the marketing BFF every mom business owner wishes they had. With over a decade of experience navigating the ups and downs of entrepreneurship while raising 4 kids, she's the go-to expert for ditching the overwhelm and building a profitable business that seamlessly blends with family life. She is the host of a popular podcast, Mom Owned and Operated, where she interviews inspiring mom business owners and shares her own experience of building a business while raising a family. She is passionate about empowering moms to overcome the chaos, conquer their marketing challenges, and create a life they love with no nonsense strategies, practical tools, and a healthy dose of humor. She is a force, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts about my conversation with Rita Suzanne. Rita, I am so excited to have this conversation. I know that my listeners are meeting you for the first time, and I am also having the first conversation I've ever had with you. And I love these opportunities to get to know each other in real time with my listeners. That said, everything I have read about you makes me wonder how we have not been talking for years. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's very, very fun. And we're just going to start with the question I ask everybody, and that is, how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
Well, I have been saying no to a lot of people, and that
Mm.
is, I started canceling a lot of things. I restructured my own podcast, and I started just taking away a lot of the things that I was doing that I just found were just too much for me. And so I feel like that is the first thing that came to my mind. Not the fact that I go to the gym every day, not the fact that, like none of that other stuff just came to my mind. That was the thing that just popped in there for me. I think it's been the most pivotal change that I've made, and it feels so good.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And it is a revolutionary concept. As much as saying yes to ourselves is
Mhm.
revolutionary, saying no to things, saying no to things that we don't even want to do feels illegal sometimes. So,
Right.
how did you come to this decision? How is this working out, and why do you think it got to where it got to before you implemented this amazing self-care practice?
Well, I started my podcast back in 2021 where I was interviewing other mom business owners. And I did it so that I could reconnect with other moms in business, but also as a way to just kind of network and market myself. And I didn't really have a barrier to entry or like a real plan of who I was going to interview, right? It was just essentially if you're a mom and you're a business, hey, I'm going to support you and I want to support you. And then it would fluctuate where I would do like this big push to interview moms, and then I would get burnt out, and
Mm.
then I would take a break, and then I would come back because I just love to do it, and I really felt connected with them when I would do it, but then I would burn myself out by doing too many of them
Mm.
because I just felt like I want to support all of them, but I really wasn't really sure how I could support all of them but provide a resource that was going to be valuable to everybody, because even though I would interview some of them, maybe they haven't been in business long enough to really provide a good interview to where it would be that there were great takeaways from it, but I was still doing it as a way to help them maybe promote their business. Right. And so I started really just getting into it and just kind of like thinking about what my audience really would want and or benefit from. And I started thinking, well, a lot of moms are struggling with creating a profitable
Mm,
business. And so what I really need to do is really hone in on guests who are profitable and really talk to guests who are more established in their businesses, who can give other guests, other business owners, the framework and the ideas that they need to take away and actually have something that would be beneficial to them. And so I said, okay, and since that's the case, I'm going to cancel XYZ, all of these interviews, because I just don't really feel like it's a good use of my time or their time for me to continue doing that. And then there were some other things that I was doing. I was doing like a free weekly networking event as well. And some just a few other things that again that I was doing, that I just am like, why am I doing all of these things and it's not really helping, isn't it just not really helping my business? And I just continue to give, and there's not really a good return on investment for me
mm.
in my business growth. And I felt like all it's doing is taking from me, and it's not benefiting me um in my actual health, and like
Right.
actually sustaining me in the long term. Because not that money is like the end all die all, but we all need that in order to sustain. And so you have to have that ROI in some aspects in order to, like, is this a good decision for you to make? And so I switched the networking to be a monthly thing versus a weekly thing. So I still do it, it's just not as frequently. I still do the podcast, I'm just more selective. And then for those newer entrepreneurs, I have a written option so they can still get some exposure, just not the same type of exposure. So I'm still offering these things, just different levels, of support.
I love that. There's so much power in course correcting
Mhm.
because we're entrepreneurs, right? We're idea factories. We want to support other entrepreneurs because we understand, and we're connectors, and we love what we do, and we have time, and we're idea factories. And there are so many opportunities for just distractions in doing the thing that we are trying to do in the
Right.
midst of all of these other things. So, there's such an element of building the engine while flying the plane as we create these businesses from nothing. And there's this tendency, like you said, to keep doing what we're doing because we said we were going to do it, or it's in our bio on Instagram, or someone already signed up to it, or something. But really taking that time and that space to be brutal with your calendar, with your offerings, with whatever area is needing to be cleaned up, whether it's your health or your business or your parenting or all of it, whatever. My word for the year is focus.
Mhm.
And I was a little reluctant to that word. I think, I don't know, do you choose a word for the year?
No, but if I was going to choose one, I would say that focus would have been probably mine as well, because a little bit ADHD, where I bing, bing, bing all over the place sometimes.
It's so fun to be like that and to say, obviously, yes is my favorite word. But what I was finding was that although I'm only available for what delights me, and I have this whole list of fabulous things that I love and adore, because those are the only things I let in, there was still too many of them.
Hmm.
And so my coach had me list everything, and I was so excited about it. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm going to do in January, and this is in February, and this is in March. And she said, nope,
Mhm.
Nope. Nope. Everything that I said. And I had to whittle it down to two things, to my bed and breakfast farm stays and for my France trips. And it was really hard. And I just thought, but you don't understand. People are already coming to supper club and people are already doing these other things. And she explained to me that it's an energy leak, and you can only have there's only so many hours in the day, but there's a limited amount of energy that we have. And when I doubled down on those two areas, all the other areas in my business grew and benefited, because I was not trying to spin this plate over here and then come over here and talk about this and then do this on Instagram and then do this over here. I just got to exhale and not be in lack. So it wasn't that she was saying that I couldn't do any of those other things. They
Mhm.
were just not the things that I was focusing my energy and my marketing dollars and my space
Right.
on. And we know that what you focus on grows.
It reminds me, and the crazy thing is because my business is really revolved around helping moms simplify their marketing, right? Like really to help them hone in on taking away tasks. And yet here I am adding more tasks to myself. And I think what got me was I heard this analogy, and I'm going to use it here with you because I think it's really poignant and relevant to what you were saying. And so I heard this analogy about the cow and the lion. I don't know if you've heard this before.
No.
So it goes like this. I'm constantly telling myself, don't be the cow, right? So, and it has nothing to do with like physical or anything like that. But if you think about the way the cow is constantly feeding, they are constantly in the field, like, constantly eating, 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 eating. But if you then look at the way a lion is, they are not just constantly walking around just looking for prey. They are sitting in wait for their prey, and they're savoring their energy. And then when something comes, they're ready to go, right? But the cow cannot actually get up and go because they have no energy stores, because they are constantly just eating, 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 and they're constantly just expending their energy. Obviously, there are two different types of animals, however, but just if you think about it in that way, they are constantly eating and expending energy at the same time. And so, if
Mhm.
we are constantly doing that in our daily time, then we make no room for these things that come up in our day, because our brain is already overloaded with all of the things. And then when something new comes up, we just are in overwhelm. And
Right.
and our mom brain is just like, oh no, I don't know what to do, and that's when the burnout happens, and that's when the
Mhm.
overwhelm is, because we're not allowing ourselves that grace or that period of rest to break. How the lion is, right? The lion is resting, it's giving itself that time. But we as moms, we just think that we need to be on the go, 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 go all the time.
Right. Right. Thank you for that. So, how are you doing with these changes, and how are you implementing those, and how do you encourage your clients to do the same?
Well, for me, I cut my calls. Like I said, I cut them off, and then I've had a few interviews since then. And there was one interview that I felt okay about. But then in reflecting about it, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to just put this one up because I don't really feel like aligned with it, and I think I'm not even going to publish it. And so I just felt like, I'm going to be real stringent going forward with my episodes, because I really want my podcast to be known for being valuable in that way. So as far as just maintaining things, I've been making sure that I'm planning ahead, that I have strict stop times and I'm actually adhering to them and not overwhelming myself. I have always been the type of person who would take off on the weekends and not work. And I had allowed that to creep back in, because I was like, okay, I'm loving this, but I was so overworked, overwhelmed with all the calls and all the things that I was doing, that I was like, oh no, I have to work on the weekends now. So by taking these calls off, I have allowed that space to open back up. So now I don't have to work on the weekends anymore. And then another thing that I had done for years was I had taken all of my email, my work email was off of my phone for about 8 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and so I recently put it back on. And then when all of this stuff happened, I took it back off, because I was like, that was a hard no for me, was to not have my work email on my phone, because I would wake up in the morning and be very reactive to whatever was going on in my email, right? I would let it almost dictate my day and my mood. And so that's why I took it off in the first place. And then it would be, okay, let me go through my morning routine. And then when I come and I sit down, then I can handle whatever's going on, versus rolling over, looking at my phone and, oh shit, let me get up and like handle this emergency, right? And then it just takes you off of whatever your morning routine is. So that's why I took it off in the first place. And then, I just became more and more trying to be accommodating to
Mhm.
situations. So I put it back on. But then with the getting in the habit of saying no, I took it right back off, because I said, I need to get back to my old habits. My old boundaries need to come right back into play, because I was like falling back into these bad habits,
Yeah.
right? And so I said, I need to just get right back into these good boundaries and pick them back up. And I think that's what happens when your business starts to kind of expand and grow. You're like, you feel obligated, and you feel like, I need to be more accessible and available to people, and we feel like we need to be responsive to them. And you don't really need to. They will be okay.
Right. That can be such a mental leap
Yeah.
also. So I applaud you in those efforts because it's not easy. I was a wedding planner for 30 years and I prided myself on my accessibility and availability. And I know that if you're thinking about your wedding at midnight, you want an answer right now. And so if I saw an email, I would respond to it. And it's the way that I've probably always run my business. And I wonder, often in my practices, I need to reevaluate. Is this serving me? Is this really the way that I like to do it? I feel like right now, with the different things that are on my plate, I am a single mom. I run a flower farm and a bed and breakfast, and I lead culinary trips to France for solo female travelers. And I do all these fun things. And I feel like because of all those things taking brain space, that I have two speeds, and
Mhm.
they are right now or not at all. So if I read an email or a DM or a comment or anything, I have to respond to it right now, or
Mhm.
else it literally will not ever happen. I
Mhm.
can't just mark it as unread and think I'm going to come back to it. That's not going to happen either. So and again, for me right now, that's working fine. I'm not feeling like I need to course correct. But how would you suggest if someone is feeling like okay, well, I can't just stop momming, or I can't just, because we also train people to treat us the way that they do. So in our over functioning, we can turn regular functioning people into under functioning people. So how do you coach your clients? How do you suggest that people kind of just switch that pendulum, not to you people are all on your own, but into implementing some boundaries that are reasonable, that but are also achievable for the former over functioner?
Well, I'm sure that you probably saw my autoresponder in any emails that received back from me. So whenever someone does send me an email, they do get an autoresponder back that says, "Hey, here are some common question answers, FAQs for you, and also like, hey, by the way, if you know a mom, here, send her here." So that kind of answers the questions, but it also helps them understand, like, I will be back to answer you within 24 hours. If it's the weekend, give me until Monday. So it kind of lets them know that they're not just lost in that, sitting there waiting for that. So I think that that's important, because then it lets the person who's receiving the email know when they're going to expect a response, even though people want that instant reply, right? But I'm also the type who will schedule sends. Like, I might work at night and I will schedule a send to go out in the morning. Right. I'll schedule it to send out in the morning, because I don't want my clients or anybody to think that I am working at night, because I don't want them to get in the habit of being expecting me to be there and response at a certain time. So it's just really showing them what you want them to know about you, right? So it's just kind of like setting those expectations up. And even on my phone, I don't have notification. I have social media on my phone, but I don't have notifications on there. So I look at it when I feel like it, and I respond when I want to. So like you, I don't like to be reactive during the day, because it just will throw me all the way off. And so that's why I just can't have it going all the time, because when I was working in corporate, they train you to have your email open all the time, right? To have and to be responsive almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I've been in business for 10 years, this is why I have had to train myself to do that, because I would be in the middle of doing something and feel, oh no, I need to handle this one, and then I would get thrown off of a project, and it would take me a while to kind of rebound and get back in there. So I just got in the habit of, I have to really establish these boundaries for myself, and I think it really helps you to get through your projects a lot faster
Yeah,
and to stay
for
on
sure.
track. Yeah, to stay like mentally, like, less overwhelmed, because I think that that's the biggest part of doing our business, is just the overwhelm that comes with having to do not just your whatever your offer is, whatever your service is, but all of the other things, the marketing, the sales, the calls, the promotion, the social media, all of the other things, the bookkeeping. You have to do all of the things as a business owner. And so it can be so overwhelming, and if you don't put these boundaries in place, then it's going to be it's just going to be too much.
Right, for sure. And I love that even with the simple fix of the autoresponder on your email, it did have the information I was looking for.
Mhm.
So that was great. It, when I received it, and it said that you weren't going to answer me for 2 days because it was a weekend, thought, wow,
Mhm.
well, look at you, queen. Like
Mhm.
it empowered me to witness you exercising your empowerment. And not that it's not outlandish, it's not ridiculous, it's completely appropriate. I
Right.
think that more than wanting a response, people want to be acknowledged. And that's what your autoresponder did. So I think for me personally, what I'm hearing and what I want to implement for myself is that similarly to what a lot of my listeners think of, oh, I could never say yes to myself in that way because, you know, my whole house would fall apart if I went to France for a week, or, you know, no one would eat and there would be loads of laundry I'd come home to, and all these things we make up in our head of how terrible it will be and what the other person's experience will be. And really, that's not what happens. It's all,
Right.
we think there's going to be, you know, we catastrophize, I catastrophize what's going to happen on the other side of it. And really just taking a deep breath, knowing my intention in setting this boundary or in opening up to receive something that feels really decadent and beautiful, that my intention is good and that that's how it will be experienced by other people, unless
Right.
it's not. And that is also not my responsibility.
Right. Right. It reminds me of the thing that I always say about being a parent. Our job is really to set our kids up to be able to take care of themselves in the world, right? And oftentimes, some parents will cripple their kids by doing too much for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as as a service provider or as a coach or a strategist or whatever, my job is really to set my clients up to empower them to do the things that I want them to do, so I can kind of push them out into the wings and be like, here you go, and not really have them lean on me too much. Like, of course I want to continue to support them and work with them, but I also want them to be able to go out there and take the tools and strategies that I give them in order to be better at what they're doing, you know. And I feel like the same goes with as being a parent. Like, we that's our job, same thing.
Right, right. Wow. I am realizing so many areas where I have the opportunity to implement some of these practices, and I can hear and feel inside my body, yeah, but what, oh, but what about this? And it's really fascinating because I wouldn't consider myself that kind of person, but I'm seeing like, where am I, not only where am I over giving, where a boundary would be appropriate, not that someone's requiring that of me, it's my own, I'm requiring it of me.
Right. Right.
And why.
It makes us feel good because we feel like they need us. It's almost like when you work in corporate and you're the manager or something. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't go on vacation because everybody needs me, right? And I would never take vacation because this whole place would fall apart without me, right? So it's the same concept. And so, as a coach or a strategist or whomever, you want people to rely on you, but really ultimately you shouldn't really want them to rely on you. You really
Right,
want to empower them, and you want them to be able to be independent and to grow, and you don't want them to rely on you.
right. And what comes up for me is, well, then what if they don't think I'm amazing?
They will
You
though.
know, I know, but it's like, that's the thing, like these,
Yeah.
this narrative in our head,
Yeah.
it gets dark really fast,
Hmm.
and it makes a lot of sense when you're only listening to your own internal narrative
Right.
of why you do the things you do and why you continue to do them, even though, you know, oh, I heard a podcast where I'm not supposed to
Yeah.
answer people in the middle of the night anymore. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you know, because my, you know, that works for her, but my business would actually collapse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But once you say it out loud, or once you acknowledge, like, wow, okay, Wendy, what is happening? What, let's look a little bit deeper into this reliance on other people thinking you're amazing.
Hmm.
And where are you, where am I, I'm talking to myself, where am I not showing up for myself?
Hmm.
Where am I not communicating to myself that I'm amazing, that I'm needing to outsource validation or outsource visibility or, a lot of things. It's just really fascinating. And I am here for it. I am here for the work. I love when things like that come up because it's in such a gentle way. I feel like
Mhm.
God is very gentle with me
Yeah.
in these revelations of what needs some attention and love and tender care. And I really appreciate that. And my commitment to myself is real. So
Yeah.
when something shady like that, shadowy, pops up, I like want to get a flashlight in there. I'm like, okay, I need some journal prompts and I want to work this through and not just to, you know, bulldoze over it and get it out of my way because you're wrecking my jam. It's that I really want to be the best version of myself. Of course, I want to be the best version of myself for Amelia, my 10-year-old, but I want to be the best version of myself for me
Hmm.
because when I do that for me, she benefits, my
Right.
community benefits, the podcast listener benefits, everybody benefits. And that's why I'm really committed to this work, these conversations, these talking about things that feel uncomfortable or illegal or not sustainable. Um, because rising tides raise all ships. And you making a decision that was a line in the sand has really inspired me to make the same decisions and really just implement systems that are available. Their auto respond is available.
Right.
Your FAQs that you sent, those were really helpful. And again, answered the question of why I was sending you an email. So there are ways to help people feel attended to preemptively, and all the while you're attending to yourself.
Yeah. And I would say, like, as a note, just do it slowly,
For
right? Like,
sure.
if you're resistant to it, just try one thing at a time slowly. I know one of my coaches, when she received my autoresponder, she said, I hate that, and I would never work with somebody who had that on there. And I said, well, it's not for you, and that's fine, but it actually helps my clients and those who receive my emails. And so I've gotten so much positive feedback on it, just because of her one negative comment is not going to change me having it on there, right? So you can't make everybody happy, and I'm not trying
No,
to. So I have to do what works best for me and my business. And that's the great thing about us having our own businesses. Like, you can design it however you want and whatever works best for you and your life. And I think that if you try it and it doesn't work for you, then you tweak it and you make something else work for you, and that's fine.
right? Right. And that's such a beautiful reminder that we are owning our own experience. And
Mhm.
in that super empowering practice, it reminds us that we get to allow other people to own their own experience. And we have a responsibility to show up the way we want to show up, whether that's an autoresponder or some other boundary that we're implementing that's for us. And we are not responsible for how another person interacts with that.
Mhm.
Of course, we are available for feedback from a person who has that role in our life. We're not available for the feedback of somebody who is just some random commenter on social media,
Right.
like telling me that I'm not a good mom because I go to France for a month. Like,
Right.
really? Okay. Who are you again? And you
Yeah.
really just have no idea what kind of mother I am. And
Mhm.
I'm a great one. So thank
Right.
you. Thank you for letting me remind myself that I'm a great mom. And part of my great momming is that I go to France for a month.
Right. And you probably don't even have any children, but okay.
Right, exactly. I mean, it is fascinating. And it's helpful to it's helpful to know ourselves and to have an intention of positivity and love for ourselves in the shaping and the implementing of the boundary, so that when somebody makes a comment or doesn't care for a practice, it gets to just bounce off. And often we are Teflon for compliments and Velcro for criticism, but we get to practice switching that around as well. And like you said, we are not going to make everybody happy. You could be the juiciest peach on the whole tree, but some people just don't like peaches.
Yeah. And, I have to keep in mind too, when she had said that she is not a mom and she was really not the target for that. So that's why I said, well, it's not for you first, and she is a great coach, but she just is not not a target audience for me as far as like me hiring her. She was a great coach for me though.
Right. And that's beautiful too. You are allowed to disagree with your coach, and your coach is allowed to disagree with you. And
But it just reminds me of that saying that some people would maybe have fallen, to that and just said, oh, my coach said not to, and just taken it off
right.
instead of maybe coming back and saying, and challenging that idea of what their coach says. And I say, stick up for something that you believe in and that maybe is working for you, because your coach is just a person like you, and maybe they don't really fully understand what it's like to be in your business.
Right. And when you, like we said, setting these boundaries with intention, knowing why you're implementing that helps you answer any question.
Mhm.
When my coach at the beginning of the year, as we were going through all of my offerings, and she was saying, nope, 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 no, I was getting really defensive and had so much resistance. But then for me, I felt that coming up and got my flashlight and get all into those shady places and just made a decision. Okay, I'm committed to not argue with the coaching that I have not even implemented yet. So I won't discount that until I try it. So I am trying it, and I can set a limit, and I can say, thank you, that was brilliant and it changed so much, or thank you, that suggestion didn't really work out the way that I had hoped it would. So I'm going to bring back the things that I miss most,
Right.
and we'll see what happens. I mean, we all get to do whatever we want to do,
Exactly.
right? Like, we didn't leave corporate so that someone else could boss us around in our own business.
Unfortunately, some of us do. We leave one boss and get 15 new bosses. So hopefully I think that happens like once you get out of those first couple of years, you start to establish those boundaries of like, no, that's not going to work for me. And then you start saying, I'm, like I said, I took my email off, I turned my notifications off, I started doing these things because it just was just not working. I was like, I cannot do this anymore.
Right. And when you are in a season of self reflection or a season of dream casting, and you're like, who do I want to be for New Year's Eve? I always write a letter to myself to open on the following New Year's Eve. And
Right.
I tell myself how proud I am of all that we've accomplished this year, but I'm speaking into the future. And when I'm doing something like that, and then I'm saying, who do I want to be? And then what are the daily practices of this woman?
Yeah.
And if this woman doesn't check her work email on Saturday, then okay, well, what do I need to do to be her? I need to set this boundary. One of those things would be taking it off my phone. One of those things would be an autoresponder. One, so then there's those practices are like four exercises down the line. So there's not a defensiveness around the practice. There's so much intention. And I can tell you exactly why if someone were to ask me about my autoresponder, I can say, oh, I'm just casting a vote for the woman I want to be. And
Mm-hmm.
then they think, oh, yay, you. Thanks for not responding to my email. Like it gets people on board when we know our truth and when we trust ourselves and go the distance in honoring what our truth is.
Yeah, I even put in the autoresponder, about being a former email addict, because I used to be so responsive and or reactive. And that's what I'm trying to do less of in my business is being reactive to all of the things, right? I want to be more proactive in everything I'm doing, whether it's creating content, whether it's project management that I'm working on, regardless of what it is. I want to be in a more proactive state so that I feel in the moment versus the reactive, which makes me feel uncomfortable and out of control. And I don't like the way that that makes me feel.
Right. I love that. I love that your um, decision for yourself has really impacted me. It's impacted positively our listeners as well. And I'm sure we can all think of one thing that we can do that is a vote for the woman that we're becoming.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you sharing what your process was so that any sting of reading the responder gets to be dissipated. I was mentioning to you before I hit record, I only record podcast interviews on Thursdays. And I have a 10-year-old, so during the school year, I only record podcasts on Thursdays between the hours of 9 and 1.
Mhm.
And I'm on the East Coast. And if you are on the West Coast, that feels even smaller window. And I realized that ooh, when I send this calendar link, somebody might think, listen, lady, if you think your podcast is going to be successful or you're ever going to get a client and you only want to, or a guest, and you're only going to talk to people for 5 minutes on on a 1 day a week. So I shared some information in that link that just says why. Like,
Mhm.
I am a single mom running a bed and breakfast on a small flower farm, and I want to be so present for these conversations that I dedicate 1 day to them. And I wear the cute shoes that are best for sitting. And I know that I'm not going to be in a chicken coop that day. So I get to wear something different. And it feels like I'm actually taking myself on a date. We've just had a little cocktail party and it's just really fun. So giving a little bit of information, I
Mhm.
think, can inform somebody response rather than engaging a reaction.
That's true. I limit my podcast interviews as well. Like before, it was Wednesday and Thursday, and now I'm probably just going to go back to just 1 day a week. And like you, my schedule is really limited on what time frames, and I
Yeah,
do that just because I
you can.
Yeah, because I can, because I can't say, oh, it's because my kids are all teenagers, and I get up early in the morning, but I don't really
Mhm.
like to be ready to interview until, say 10 or 11 in the morning. And that's fine because I like to do a slow rise and, get my things together. And then, by 2, 3 o'clock, I don't want to interview anymore. And it's fine. I wanted to I want to be done. So there's no like rhyme or reason. I have no excuse. This is my limited schedule.
And you get to do it any way you want, and it's perfect for you.
You want to interview with me, this is when you have to do it. And I've had people from other, time zones,
Sure.
countries, other places say, is there any way that you can accommodate me? And I'm not really. No,
Right.
sorry.
No interviews from Australia on your podcast.
I can't stay up. No, like I can't do that because it is just it's too much. Like, not that I wouldn't love to, have that opportunity with you, but at this time I don't see the payoff or benefit for it. So yeah, no.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I have loved this conversation and getting to know you better. This is amazing. Tell everyone where they can find and follow you.
Sure. My website is ritasuzanne.com. My podcast is Mom Owned and Operated. And I am on all the social medias at Rita Suzanne Strategy.
Perfect. We will link everything in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. I know how precious it is, and I appreciate you sharing some of it with us.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.